If you're a beginner in watercolor, I am about to do a lesson with you that is going to change your painting so much. We are going to learn about color, we're going to learn about brush control, and we are going to make a cute little painting in the meantime that's going to be so much fun and so relaxing. What is fun about this is that you don't have to be good at painting. All you have to do is listen and follow directions and try your best at mixing the colors that we are going to mix together. In terms of supplies, you do not need anything fancy. You just need your basic watercolor set. I'm using Praying for this, and it's just like a basic school set. It's about $3. And then I also use a round brush with a pointy tip. You are going to want to pay attention to your brush. Make sure you're not using a brush that fluffs out. Use any kind of watercolor. They just need to have all of those like basic little kid rainbow colors and then something to mix on. I'm just using the lid of my paint palette. And then you're also going to need 2 cups of water, one for washing your colors and one for adding water. A paper towel. I like to fold my paper towel so I can use it to blot my brush. And if you want to tape off the edges, you can use some tape. I use green tape in this, but you can use any type of tape that you want. And I like to tape mine to another bigger piece of paper so I can move it around. But those are the only supplies that you need for this. In this lesson, we're going to learn about composition and placement and how to make things look interesting in terms of a painting, like how to add big spots and little spots and details and where to add color. So let's get started. What I have done is I have taped my paper with a very short and skinny little border to another paper. It's loosely taped on the edges. I can still move it around. You do not have to tape your paper. You don't have to have a border. You can just start on a plain piece of paper if you like, but I'm doing that just because it keeps it nice and neat. If you find that your paper tears when you take off your tape, there's a trick. If you stick your tape to your clothing, pick up some of those clothing fibers and then put your tape down on your paper, press it pretty hard, it will not tear as much. So I like the green tape because it really doesn't tear very well. So I have that, have everything ready. Before we start on our actual painting, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can use a very simple and inexpensive paint set to create some really sophisticated colors. You should never be using your colors straight out of your paint set if you're using a paint set like this. If you have one with like specialty colors, of course, feel free to use them. But for this basic Praying watercolor set, you will notice that you just have like the basic rainbow colors, but they're really saturated and they're also kind of flat. Like I don't love the colors that they come with, but actually I do, because you can mix everything with them. They really did know what they were doing. So what we are going to do is we're going to grab a paper, just a practice paper for this, and practice painting one of your colors. Like for example, I'm going to take this red, and when I paint out the red, I notice that it's kind of a bluish red. It's just a flat, kind of a plain basic red. If I were to mix just the tiniest bit of orange in with this red, and I know it's weird to say bluish, but if you really look at it compared to when you mix a teeny bit of orange in it, it's still a bright red and saturated red, but it's just a warmer red. So you can really change the tones of your colors. If you have not taken my color theory watercolor class, go back and look at that because it'll be really helpful. There is a warm and a cool version of every single color, even yellow, even blue. I know that seems crazy, but it's true. The green is like a chroma key green. It's like this really bright, unnatural green. But if you take that green and you just mix it with a little bit of blue, it tones it down a little bit. If you mix that green with a little bit of red, if you look at the color wheel, make sure you have a color wheel next to you. And I'll show you one in a second, but if you mix your green with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue, it just changes that green up enough that it looks a little bit more interesting. So play around with your colors and try to make colors that are not right out of the palette as you're playing around. Tone them down a little bit. And even if you want bright colors, you can still benefit by changing your colors a little bit. I'm going to take my blue, and the blue in the palette is also, it's a very much of a phthalo, like greenish blue. But if I take that same blue and I mix it with the violet in the Praying is really saturated. I mix a little teeny bit of violet in there. It makes this very great ultramarine, like bright blue. So it's a fun way to play with color. And if you have time to make a color wheel with your paint, make a color wheel, because it's going to be so helpful just to be able to look. And I can, there's a video somewhere in my YouTube that shows how to make a color wheel with watercolor, and it ends up kind of looking like this. And you can look and say like, oh, right across from the blue is the orange. I'm going to add a tiny bit of orange to my blue, and I'm just going to tone it down a little bit. And it just makes it look a little bit muted, a little bit more interesting and dimensional. And you can get a lot of different colors that way. You can make an infinite amount of colors playing around with this. While we have the brush out, I want to just tell you a few things about using your brush. When you're using your brush, you want it to barely touch your paper. You have a pointy brush and you want to use that point to your advantage. Practice on your hand a little bit. If you're pressing your brush down, you're going to get a thick, wide line. And if you're barely touching your paper, you're going to get a thin line. So that's all part of brush control. And if you hold your brush further up on the paintbrush, closer to the bristles, you're going to have more control. And if you go back on the handle with your brush, it's going to be a bigger sweep of the brush. Okay, so that's the best way to think about brush control, and just practice that. I'm going to start by getting a very light blue, just like a lot of water and a little bit of paint, and I'm going to figure out where the middle of my paper is, and I'm going to use my brush and make a very small pointy line right down the middle of my paper. That is going to be where my ocean ends. And again, keep it super light. If you need to wipe your brush off so that you don't have too much water in there. And then I'm going to turn it into a wavy line because it doesn't need to be perfect. It is water after all. I'm going to fill that in. So I have just like a little wavy line on the top. Yours can be different. Yours can be the same. Either way, it's going to be fine. After that, I'm going to grab some more paint. And I am going to think about my next wave. So I'm going to think about these as like every individual shape is a wave. So I'm adding a little bit of green to that. And I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see how close I'm going to the edge of that. I am just going to go right up close and I'm going to make a wavy line. And then while it's still wet, you don't want to be too slow, I'm going to fill that in with the same color. And basically, I am doing this throughout my whole painting. I'm just adding different shapes. I do want to make sure that my shapes are varied. Do you see how some of those are really small, some are really fat, some are dark, some are light? I'm going to be making several different shapes and they're all going to fit in. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speed some of this up a little bit so you can kind of see how the process goes, and you can plan it out. I added a fish, I added seaweed. I did add the fish and then I kind of put the waves all around it, but I'm just trying to fill in all of that white space. So here is this sped up a little bit so you can see how I fill in the space. Just watch and see what I do. And some of these I go over again with another layer of watercolor just to make sure that my colors are correct, because I really want to vary how my colors look. Some are dark, some are light, and I want them to be purple and blue and green, but I really want them to be cool tones. So stick with your cool tones and then try to keep the white spaces between everything that you do the same thickness. So if you have like a really thick ones, keep them that way. If you have thinner ones, keep them that way as well. I'm just going to keep adding shapes and everything is going to fit together. So basically I'm not leaving any white space. And in a minute, I'm going to add the little fish, and I am leaving white space around the fish because I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just making it up. And then I'm going to just kind of add things around it to fill up the space. And you can totally do this. You can plan everything out, draw it out with a pencil if you want to, but I prefer for this because it's relaxing just to add things as they come. So I'm kind of keeping all of the elements horizontal, but it's fun to add some vertical elements like the green seaweed on the side of the fish. And then if you have any little gaps around, just add in a different color or continue, like where I did the dark blue around the fish, continue that around the shape that you have. Any wavy elements, you can just do like these little mountainous bumpy things that fill in the gaps if you need to, and just fill up all your space until you're done. Now we are going to start the top part, the sunset. And for this one, I actually flipped it upside down to paint it, but for the sake of this video, I just flipped it back right side. So you'll see my hand coming from the top, but I had painted it upside down because my ocean or my sea was a little bit damp, so I wanted to make sure to not smudge it. So you do it however you want. I like to flip things all the time. That's why I don't tape things to the table or use big heavy drawing boards, because I like to be able to move things around. All right, I am going to start with a yellow, but I'm going to mix it with a little bit of orange because I want to make a warm yellow. This is going to be my sun, and I'm just mixing half, it's not super dark. And then I'm going to make a sun right in the middle. I'm going to start it small so that if the shape is wonky, I can always make it bigger. And if I get the shape right, then I'll be happy with it, and that'll be it. Make a little arc. It's like a half circle. And then I'm not touching my water. I'm leaving a little white space between every single element. Remember. And then I am going to fill that in quickly. And if I see any brush strokes, then I know that I either want to add less water and more paint and move a little bit quicker, or I can let it dry and just do another layer. Now what I'm going to do with the sky can completely vary. If you just want to make sun rays coming up and make all the sun rays the same and not add any clouds, you can totally do that. You can just make like these radiating lines all in different colors. That looks really nice. And then if you want to add some clouds, get a little more advanced. That's what I'm doing for this one. And I will also, just for this project, I'll make a drawing that you can use as a template if you don't feel confident drawing these elements. And I will post it on my website. So look in the comments and you'll see a link to this little mini lesson with a drawing and some examples on my website if you feel like you need a little bit more guidance. So I just started out making a few small marks where the sun rays are, and then I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to add some puffy little clouds. But I'm going to start by kind of going around those marks, and then I'm going to make these loopies. These are my clouds. Even though they're pink and orange, it doesn't make any sense, but it's fine. It's all about the color. And for every color, I'm just going to add a little bit of the pinkish orange that I have made, just a tiny bit into every color, and I'm going to harmonize it. So that'll make all the colors look good together. So all the colors will kind of match. They'll be all different, but they will all look like they go together. So for this one, I'm just going with a little bit stronger of a pink with a lot less orange in it, but still a little bit of orange in it. And I'm going around the sun rays. It looks kind of weird for now, but bear with me, it'll get better. And I'm going to soften my corners a little bit around the sun so that it doesn't look quite so harsh, but I just kind of play it by ear. And now I'm going to grab an orange. So I grabbed that pink and I added a lot more yellow to it to make it super orange. And I'm just going to follow that same shape. And honestly, any shape that you do is totally fine. Just make sure in terms of your colors that every color that is next to another color is different. So you don't want to do 2 of the same or 3 of the same pink clouds all in a row. You want to be like pink, orange, yellow. Try to vary it, even if it's a little bit of a difference. Try to vary it as much as you can. I'm going to go into super speed here as I finish out the rest of the sky. And you can also add a couple of extra layers over top of your colors. Like if you don't think they're right, just make another color over top of it. And I just fill in these spaces. There's one part where you saw I kind of smudged it with my finger. I did mess up a little bit and there was no white space. So you can honestly just dab it with a paper towel. If you get it in time while it's still wet, especially with these prangs, they erase pretty easily. Just get it wet, dab it with a paper towel, wait for it to dry, and you can repaint that if you work quickly. And if you feel like you want to keep some white space in, you can totally do that. This is your art, so do whatever you want with it. I like to fill up my whole space and go all the way to the border, because when you take the tape off, it ends up looking pretty cool, and you'll see that at the end. This makes a really nice little gift or a postcard or a birthday card or something. And remember, you can add whatever you want. You could add birds into the sky or more sea creatures or dolphins or octopus or whatever you want. Have fun with this and make it your own. Now I'm going to take the tape off and let's see the final result. Make sure that your paint is completely dry before you take off your tape. If it's not, it's going to leak at the edges. And mine's not completely dry, but it's dry at the edges. So I felt confident to take my tape off. And it looks great with a little bit of a white border. Don't forget to sign your art. Artists sign their art on the bottom right side. And if you sign it, make sure to date it so you can remember when you made this incredible piece of artwork. Keep painting, and I hope you enjoyed your lesson today. If you like my art lessons, would you please subscribe and share with a friend? I really appreciate it. I love teaching you, and I hope that you love creating art with me.